After 6 years away, John finally came home with the biggest surprise of his life, a $600,000 house he bought for the woman who sacrificed everything for him. But when he opened the front door, he didn't find his mother living like a queen, he found her being treated like a servant. My name is Ethan Brooks. I'm 36 years old, and for 6 long years I worked as an ICU nurse in hospitals across the Middle East. Every birthday, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, and every Mother's Day, I spent caring for strangers instead of sitting at my mother's dinner table. People often thanked me for saving lives, but the person I thought about every single day was my own mother. Her name is Helen Brooks. She spent her whole life putting her children first. When my younger brother and I were little, she worked 2 jobs after our father passed away. During the day she cleaned offices. At night she stocked shelves at a grocery store. She never complained, even when her hands became rough from years of hard work. Whenever I called her from overseas, she always said the same thing. "I'm doing just fine, sweetheart. Just take care of yourself." Welcome to a new video. I hope you'll enjoy the story. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks. Now let's get back to the story. I wanted to believe her. But I knew she was getting older. I knew the little house where we grew up was falling apart. The roof leaked every spring. The heater barely worked during winter. The porch leaned a little farther every year. So I made myself a promise. Before I came home, my mother would never have to worry about money again. Every extra shift I could work, I accepted. When my co-workers went on vacations, I stayed behind. I lived in a tiny apartment with second-hand furniture. I hardly bought new clothes. Most of my paycheck went straight into savings. 6 years later, I finally had enough. I bought my mother a beautiful home just outside Denver. It had white brick walls, a wide front porch, tall maple trees, and a peaceful backyard filled with flowers. It cost a little over $600,000. The day I signed the papers, I cried. Not because of the money. Because I could finally give my mother something she had never allowed herself. Comfort. When I called to tell her, she became very quiet. "Ethan, this is too much." "No," I told her. "It's still not enough." She laughed through happy tears. "You've already given me more than I ever dreamed." After that, she moved into the house. Since I still had several months left on my overseas contract, I asked my younger brother, Ryan, to check on her once in a while. "Just make sure Mom isn't lonely," I said. "Don't worry," Ryan answered. "I've got her." At the time, I believed him. Ryan was 32. He had always been charming. People liked him because he knew exactly what to say. His wife, Nicole, smiled just as easily. She posted happy family pictures online almost every day. From thousands of miles away, everything looked perfect. Whenever I called Mom, Ryan or Nicole usually answered first. "She's resting. She's out gardening. She's taking a nap." Sometimes I heard Mom's voice in the background, but our conversations never lasted long. I told myself she was simply enjoying her peaceful retirement. Looking back now, I realize I believed what I wanted to believe. The morning my contract finally ended, I packed my bags with a heart lighter than it had been in years. I didn't tell anyone I was coming home. I wanted it to be a surprise. During the long flight back to America, I imagined my mother's face when she opened the front door. Maybe she'd cry. Maybe she'd hug me so tightly neither of us could speak. Maybe we'd sit on that porch together until sunset, drinking iced tea and laughing about everything we'd missed. That picture stayed in my mind the entire trip. When my taxi finally turned onto the quiet street, I smiled. The neighborhood looked even prettier than I remembered from the real estate photos. Children rode bicycles. Neighbors waved to each other. American flags fluttered gently from front porches. Then the driver stopped in front of the house. "There you go," he said. For a moment I simply stared. The lawn looked perfect. Fresh flowers lined the walkway. A new SUV sat in the driveway. I frowned. Mom had never driven an SUV. Maybe Ryan had borrowed the driveway. I picked up my suitcase, walked to the front door, and rang the bell. A few seconds later, the door opened. Standing there was a woman I had never seen before. She looked me up and down with a polite smile. "Can I help you?" I blinked. "Yes. I'm looking for Helen Brooks." "Oh," she said casually. "You mean the maid?" The words didn't make sense. "I'm sorry, what?" She pointed toward the backyard without the slightest hesitation. "She's outside pulling weeds. If you need anything cleaned, you'll have to wait until she's finished." For a second, I couldn't move. The suitcase slipped from my hand and landed on the porch with a dull thud. Somewhere beyond the fence, I heard the scrape of a garden tool against the soil. And suddenly, for the first time in 6 years, I was terrified of what I was about to see. For a few seconds, I stood frozen on the front porch. The woman smiled politely, as if she had said something completely normal. She stepped aside, expecting me to leave so she could close the door again. Instead, I walked past her without asking permission. "Excuse me," she called after me. "You can't just walk in." I barely heard her. The house looked different from the one I had carefully picked for my mother. The soft blue curtains were gone. Expensive paintings covered the walls. Family pictures filled the shelves, but none of them showed my mother by herself. Every framed photo showed my younger brother, Ryan, his wife Nicole, and their 2 children smiling proudly inside the house I had bought. My stomach tightened. This wasn't how I had imagined my mother's home. Children's toys were scattered across the living room. A large television played cartoons with the sound turned high. Shoes were piled beside the front door. It looked less like my mother's peaceful retirement home and more like someone else's family house. The woman hurried after me. "Sir, please stop. Ryan and Nicole aren't home." I slowly turned toward her. "You know Ryan?" "Of course. They live here." 3 simple words hit me harder than any punch. "They live here?" She nodded. "They've lived here for almost 5 years. 5 years. Nobody had ever told me that. Not Ryan. Not Nicole. Not even Mom." Before I could ask another question, I heard a screen door creak open somewhere behind the house. Then came the soft sound of someone coughing. I hurried toward the backyard. The bright afternoon sun covered everything with warm light. Flowers bloomed along the fence. A small vegetable garden filled one corner. Near the back flower beds, a woman knelt in the dirt. She wore old jeans covered with grass stains. Gardening gloves hid her hands. Her gray hair was tied back beneath a faded baseball cap. Even from behind, I knew exactly who she was. Mom. She stopped moving. Very slowly, she turned around. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then her eyes grew wide. "Ethan." The gardening shovel slipped from her hand. I crossed the yard in a few quick steps, and she wrapped both arms around me so tightly I could hardly breathe. "My boy," she whispered. "I missed you so much." So did I. Neither of us cared that dirt covered her clothes or that tears were running down both our faces. For a long moment, nothing else mattered. Then I noticed her hands. They weren't just dirty from gardening. The skin was cracked. Her fingers were rough. Several small cuts crossed her knuckles. They looked like the hands of someone doing hard work every day. Not someone enjoying retirement. I gently held one of her hands. "Mom, what happened?" She quickly pulled it away. Oh, it's nothing. You've never lied to me very well. She forced a little smile. I just like staying busy. Before I could answer, the woman from the front door walked into the backyard carrying a basket of clean towels. She looked surprised to see us hugging. Oh, she said. So you know Helen. My mother stepped back immediately. Linda, this is my son Ethan. The woman blinked. Your son. Then she looked at me with confusion. I thought you lived overseas. I did. She smiled awkwardly. Well, welcome home. I pointed toward the towels. What are those for? Oh, Linda answered. Helen washes everyone's clothes before dinner. My mother's face changed. She looked down at the ground. I looked from the basket, to my mother's hands, then back to Linda. My mother washes everyone's laundry. Linda looked uncomfortable. I thought. She liked helping. Before I could ask another question, a little girl ran across the yard. Grandma, she shouted happily. She hugged my mother's waist. Mom says dinner has to be ready before Daddy gets home. Grandma. Not Mom. Not Helen. Grandma. My mother smiled gently at the little girl. I'll start right away. She picked up the gardening tools again. I stepped in front of her. No. She looked at me with worried eyes. Ethan. No, Mom. I lowered my voice. You've been outside working all afternoon. It's fine. No. She tried to walk past me. I gently stopped her again. When was the last time someone cooked dinner for you? She didn't answer. That silence told me everything. Just then, a car pulled into the driveway. A few seconds later, I heard laughter coming from the front of the house. Ryan. Nicole. They were home. Neither of them knew I had arrived. Neither of them knew I had already seen enough to understand that something was terribly wrong. As my brother's footsteps came closer through the house, I looked once more at my mother's tired face. She gave me the smallest shake of her head. It wasn't a warning. It was a plea. Please, don't make a scene. I took a slow breath and nodded. If there was one thing 6 years in an intensive care unit had taught me, it was this. Sometimes acting too quickly makes a bad situation even worse. So instead of letting my anger speak first, I stayed quiet. Because I had a feeling the truth hiding inside this house was far bigger than anything I had seen so far. The back door slid open, and I heard my brother's familiar laugh. Something smells great. Ryan called as he walked inside. A second later, Nicole answered with a cheerful voice. I hope Mom remembered to bake those dinner rolls. I stood very still. Neither of them had seen me yet. My mother quietly picked up the basket of towels, as if she planned to disappear into the house before anyone noticed the tears on her face. I gently touched her arm. You don't have to carry that. She gave me a small smile. It's all right. Before she could take another step, Ryan walked into the kitchen. He stopped so suddenly that the grocery bag slipped from his hand. Ethan. For a moment, he looked shocked. Then his face stretched into a huge smile. Brother. He hurried over and wrapped me in a hug. When did you get home? About 10 minutes ago. You should have called. We'd have picked you up from the airport. I wanted to surprise everyone. His smile stayed on his face, but something in his eyes changed. It was only for a second. A tiny flash of worry. Nicole entered the kitchen carrying her purse. She froze too. Ethan. Oh my goodness. She hugged me quickly before stepping back. We had no idea you were coming. I can see that. She laughed nervously. You must be tired after such a long flight. I've had longer. Ryan clapped me on the shoulder. Come on. Sit down. Mom was just about to finish dinner. I looked toward my mother. She had already tied an apron around her waist. Without saying a word, she began washing vegetables at the sink. Nicole opened the refrigerator and pointed inside. Mom, don't forget the salad dressing. Then she turned to me. She insists on helping around the house. My mother stayed quiet. Ryan nodded quickly. Yeah. She says it keeps her active. Neither of them looked at Mom while they spoke. Instead, they answered for her. I pulled out a chair. Mom, why don't you sit with me for a minute? Before she could answer, Nicole smiled. Oh, dinner won't be ready if she stops now. I looked directly at Nicole. It can wait. The kitchen became very quiet. For the first time, my mother slowly sat down across from me. She looked almost nervous. I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen her act that way in her own home. Ryan quickly changed the subject. So, how was it to work overseas? It was busy. I bet. We saved a lot of lives. Ryan smiled. I always knew you'd do something important. His words sounded kind, but they also felt like he was trying to fill the silence. I noticed something else. Every few seconds, Ryan and Nicole glanced at each other. Almost like they were silently asking the same question. How much does Ethan know? Dinner was finally served. Everyone gathered around the large dining table. Ryan sat at one end. Nicole sat beside him. Their children climbed into their chairs. My mother quietly carried each plate to the table. She served everyone else first. Only after everyone had food did she sit down with a much smaller plate. I frowned. Mom, is that all you're eating? She smiled softly. I'm not very hungry. The little boy across from me looked confused. Grandma always eats last. Nicole gently patted his shoulder. Remember your manners. But the words had already been spoken. Grandma always eats last. The sentence echoed inside my head. During dinner, Ryan talked about his new truck. Nicole talked about decorating the living room. The children talked about school. No one asked my mother what she wanted. No one asked how she was feeling. It was as if she had become part of the furniture. Always there. Never noticed. After dinner ended, my mother immediately stood up and began collecting dirty plates. I stood too. I'll help. She quickly shook her head. You don't have to. I want to. Ryan laughed. See? Mom never lets anybody else do the dishes. Before I could answer, Linda, the housekeeper, quietly stepped into the kitchen. She looked surprised to find everyone still awake. Then she smiled at me. Oh, now I understand. Ryan looked puzzled. Understand what? Linda answered without thinking. I thought Helen was your maid. The room fell completely silent. Ryan's smile disappeared. Nicole's face turned pale. My mother lowered her eyes. Linda looked around the room, suddenly realizing she had said something wrong. I'm sorry. She placed the folded towels on the counter and hurried away. No one spoke for several long seconds. Finally, Ryan forced out a laugh. Funny misunderstanding. No one laughed with him. I looked at my mother. She still hadn't said a single word. Then I looked back at my brother. I think, I said calmly, we need to have a very honest conversation. Ryan swallowed hard. Nicole slowly set down her glass. Neither of them realized it yet, but the questions I was about to ask would begin pulling apart every lie they had spent years carefully building. The room stayed quiet. No one reached for another plate. No one even moved. Ryan finally cleared his throat. Ethan, I think you're making this into something bigger than it is. I looked at him calmly. Then help me understand. Nicole folded her arms. Your mother likes taking care of people. She's always been that way. I turned to Mom. Is that true? She hesitated. I don't mind helping. It wasn't the answer I was looking for. I had spent years watching patients answer difficult questions. I knew the difference between someone speaking freely and someone trying to protect others. My mother wasn't speaking for herself. She was protecting them. Ryan leaned back in his chair. Look, after Mom moved in, we visited all the time. The kids loved being here. Nicole smiled. Then our landlord raised the rent. Mom said we should move in for a little while. A little while? I asked. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. Things just worked out that way. For 5 years. Neither of them answered. I slowly looked around the dining room again. The expensive furniture I had chosen for Mom was still there. But almost everything else belonged to Ryan's family. School backpacks hung by the stairs. Family calendars covered the refrigerator. Nicole's decorations filled every shelf. There was almost nothing that showed this house belonged to my mother. Even her favorite rocking chair was gone. Where's Mom's chair? I asked. Nicole smiled nervously. It didn't really match the living room. So you got rid of it? We donated it. My mother quickly interrupted. It was old anyway. I saw the sadness in her eyes before she looked down again. That chair belonged to our grandmother. Mom would never have donated it by choice. Ryan stood up. Come on, Ethan. You're tired. Let's not argue on your first night home. I'm not arguing. I kept my voice calm. I'm asking questions. Just then, Ryan's little son tugged gently on my sleeve. Uncle Ethan? Yes, buddy. He pointed upstairs. Do you want to see my room? Ryan answered before I could. Go ahead. He'll love showing you. I smiled at the little boy. Lead the way. The child happily ran upstairs. As I followed him, I noticed every bedroom door was decorated with colorful name signs. Emma. Jacob. Ryan and Nicole. Then I reached the last door at the end of the hallway. There was no name. I opened it slowly. The room was tiny. A narrow bed stood against one wall. A small dresser sat beneath the window. A single family photo rested on top. My mother smiled in the picture, but her eyes looked tired even then. This couldn't be right. The master bedroom downstairs had been designed especially for her. It had a large bathroom with safety rails, wide doors, and a beautiful view of the backyard. I remembered choosing every detail. Yet somehow, she was sleeping in the smallest room in the house. Behind me, Ryan's voice spoke quietly. Mom said she likes it upstairs. I turned around. Really? Yes. Then why did she ask me to build the master bedroom for her? Ryan looked surprised. I don't remember. I do. Years ago, Mom had laughed with excitement when I showed her the house plans. She had loved the morning sunlight that filled the downstairs bedroom. She had even joked that she would never have to climb stairs again. Now she climbs them every single day. I walked toward the window. The backyard stretched below. From here I could clearly see the flower garden my mother cared for. Then I noticed something else. Near the garage stood a small wooden shed. Its light was on. What do you keep in there? Ryan answered quickly. Just tools. The answer came too fast. Almost as if he had expected the question. Before I could ask another one, my phone buzzed. It was a text message. Unknown number. For a moment, I almost ignored it. Then I opened it. The message contained only one sentence. Don't believe everything your brother tells you. Check the county property records before you confront anyone. No name. No explanation. Just that. I read it twice. County property records. Why would a stranger tell me that? I slipped the phone back into my pocket without saying anything. Ryan watched me carefully. Everything okay? Just an old coworker. He nodded, but I noticed the worry return to his face. Later that evening, after everyone had gone to bed, I quietly walked downstairs for a glass of water. As I passed the kitchen, I heard soft voices coming from the back porch. I stopped. Ryan and Nicole were whispering. I told you he shouldn't have come without warning, Nicole said. He can't know. He already suspects something. Ryan sighed heavily. We only need a little more time. And if he checks? He won't. There was a long silence. Then Ryan spoke again, so quietly I almost couldn't hear him. If he ever sees the paperwork, everything we've planned will fall apart. I stepped back into the shadows before either of them could see me. My heart was beating faster than it had all day. I still didn't know what paperwork they were talking about. But between the strange text message and the whispered conversation, one thing had become clear. The biggest secret in this house wasn't hidden in the kitchen, or the bedrooms. It was hidden on paper. And tomorrow, I intended to find it. I hardly slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mother kneeling in the garden while a stranger called her, the maid. That picture wouldn't leave my mind. Just before sunrise, I quietly got dressed and slipped out of the house. The neighborhood was peaceful. Birds sang from the tall maple trees, and a cool breeze carried the smell of fresh-cut grass. I drove to the county records office downtown. Years ago, when I bought the house, my lawyer had explained something important. Keep every document, he had said. Good paperwork protects good people. At the time, I thought he was just being careful. Now I hoped he had been right. Inside the office, a friendly clerk greeted me. Good morning. How can I help you? I'd like to check the property records for a house I purchased several years ago. She smiled. Certainly. May I have the address? I gave it to her. She typed for a minute before turning the monitor slightly toward me. There it is. My eyes scanned the screen. Owner of record. Helen Brooks Family Living Trust. I quietly smiled. Exactly as planned. The trust still owned the house. Ryan's name wasn't anywhere. Neither was Nicole's. Then I asked another question. Have there been any attempts to transfer ownership? The clerk checked another page. Her smile faded. There have been several requests. Several. She nodded. All of them were rejected. Why? The trust agreement requires approval from both the trustee and the legal protector before any sale, loan, or ownership change can happen. I thanked her and walked outside. For the first time since arriving home, I took a deep breath. The house was still safe. Years earlier, just before flying overseas, I had followed my lawyer's advice. Instead of giving the house directly to Mom, I had placed it inside a family trust. Mom was the lifetime beneficiary. She could live there as long as she wanted. No one could force her to leave. No one could sell the house. No one could borrow money against it. And one more detail. Very few people knew who the legal protector of the trust actually was. I folded the papers and placed them carefully inside my backpack. Someone had definitely tried to take the house. But they had failed. The question was, who? As I returned home, I decided not to tell anyone what I had learned. Not yet. People often reveal more when they believe they've already won. When I walked through the front door, I heard laughter from the kitchen. Ryan looked up. There you are. Went for a walk. Nicole poured herself some coffee. We were wondering where you disappeared to. I couldn't sleep. Mom was already making pancakes. She smiled when she saw me. I saved you some. I gently took the spatula from her hand. Today I'm cooking. She looked surprised. You don't have to. I know. I smiled. But I want to. For the first time that morning, she sat down without anyone asking her to do another chore. As I cooked breakfast, I watched everyone carefully. Ryan kept checking his phone. Nicole seemed unusually nervous. Every few minutes, they exchanged quick looks. Finally, Ryan cleared his throat. Ethan, there's actually something we wanted to discuss. I flipped another pancake. I'm listening. Nicole forced a smile. You've been gone a long time. 6 years. A lot has changed. So I've noticed. Ryan leaned forward. We've been taking care of this house. I nodded. You've certainly been living here. He laughed awkwardly. Exactly. Nicole jumped in. We've paid utility bills, bought furniture, fixed things. Ryan smiled. So we were thinking. I placed the frying pan on the stove and turned toward them. Thinking what? Ryan folded his hands together. Maybe it's time to make everything official. My heartbeat stayed calm. Official? You know. He glanced at Nicole before continuing. It would make sense if the house were put in our names. The kitchen became very quiet. Mom stopped drinking her tea. She looked down at her cup. Ryan kept talking. It'll stay in the family. Nicole nodded eagerly. And Mom won't have to worry about paperwork anymore. I looked at both of them. Then I asked the simplest question I could think of. Did my mother ask for this? Neither answered. Instead, Ryan smiled again. We're just trying to make life easier. For who? His smile disappeared. For everyone. I slowly reached into my backpack. Ryan's eyes immediately followed my hand. Nicole stopped breathing for a second. I didn't pull out the trust papers. Instead, I took out a small notebook and calmly placed it on the table. I think, I said softly, before anyone talks about changing ownership, we should first understand exactly who owns this house today. For the first time since I came home, I saw real fear appear on Ryan's face. He tried to hide it. But it was too late. At that moment, I knew something important. My brother hadn't simply hoped the house would become his one day. He had been counting on it. And he had no idea that the one signature he needed, was the one he could never get. Ryan stared at me without saying a word. The smile he had been wearing all morning was gone. Nicole looked down at the table, twisting the handle of her coffee mug with both hands. My mother quietly watched all of us, as if she knew a storm was coming but hoped it might still pass. I opened my notebook. I've been away for 6 years, I said calmly. So maybe there are things I don't know. Let's start with something simple. Ryan forced a laugh. Sure. When did you move into this house? He answered quickly. About 5 years ago. Did Mom invite you? Yes. I looked at Mom. She hesitated before speaking. I told them they could stay for a little while. A few months? I asked. She nodded softly. That's what I thought. Ryan spoke before she could continue. But then our finances got worse. The kids were settled in school. Mom said we should stay. I turned back to my mother. Did you ever ask them to leave? Her eyes filled with tears. No. Ryan looked relieved. Then Mom quietly added, because I didn't want the children to suffer. The room fell silent. She wasn't saying she wanted them there. She was saying she had stayed silent for the sake of her grandchildren. There was a big difference. Nicole leaned forward. We've done a lot for Helen. I nodded. Tell me. We buy groceries. Ryan added, I mow the lawn. Nicole continued, the kids keep her company. I listened carefully. Then I asked one more question. Who cooks almost every meal? Nobody answered. Who washes everyone's clothes? Silence. Who cleans the bathrooms? Still nothing. Who packs the children's lunches? Ryan shifted in his chair. Mom likes helping. I looked at him. That's not what I asked. My mother slowly reached for my hand. Ethan, please. I squeezed her hand gently. I'm not angry with you. She lowered her head. I know. The front doorbell rang. Ryan stood up too quickly. I'll get it. A few moments later, he returned with a man wearing a company shirt. Morning, the visitor said. I'm here about the home equity loan. Ryan's face lost all its color. You have the wrong house. The man checked the address on his tablet. No, sir. This is the correct address. Nicole stood up so fast that her chair almost tipped over. We already handled that. The man frowned. Our office just needs one missing signature before we can continue processing. I stayed completely quiet. The visitor looked around the room. Would Mrs. Helen Brooks be available? Mom looked confused. I'm Helen. The man smiled politely. Good morning, ma'am. We only need your approval on a few documents. Ryan hurried toward him. Not today. The man blinked. It'll only take a minute. I said not today. The visitor looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry. I'll come back another time. He handed Ryan an envelope before leaving. The front door closed. No one moved. Ryan slowly placed the envelope on the kitchen counter. I could see his hands shaking. Finally, I spoke. Home equity loan. Ryan rubbed his forehead. It was just an idea. Nicole nodded quickly. We wanted to renovate. What kind of renovation costs hundreds of thousands of dollars? Neither answered. I walked to the counter and looked at the unopened envelope. Ryan stepped in front of it. Private paperwork. I smiled politely. Then why is it addressed to my mother? His mouth opened. No words came out. Mom looked from Ryan to me. I don't understand. Ryan finally sighed. We thought. Maybe we could borrow against the house. You never mentioned that to me, Mom whispered. We didn't want to worry you. I looked directly at my brother. So you plan to use Mom's home as collateral? It would have helped all of us. Would it? He crossed his arms. You don't know how expensive life is. I know exactly how expensive life is. I remembered all the nights I had worked double shifts. All the holidays I had missed. All the birthdays I had spent inside hospital walls. Every dollar I had saved had been for one reason. To make sure our mother would never have to worry again. Not so someone else could borrow against her home. Ryan looked frustrated. You act like we're criminals. I haven't called anyone a criminal. Then stop treating us like one. I calmly picked up my backpack. I think it's time we all understood the facts. Ryan watched every movement I made. Nicole barely blinked. Very carefully, I removed a sealed folder. Not the original trust papers. Just a certified copy. I placed it gently on the kitchen table. I visited the county records office this morning. Ryan's shoulders stiffened. Nicole whispered, oh no. I looked at both of them. The records show someone has tried more than once to change the ownership of this house. Neither of them spoke. Then I asked the question neither of them wanted to hear. Would either of you like to explain why? No one answered. The silence in the kitchen seemed to grow heavier with every second. Ryan looked at the folder on the table as if it might disappear if he ignored it. Nicole finally spoke first. We never wanted to hurt anyone. I looked at her. Then tell the truth. She took a deep breath but said nothing more. Ryan straightened his shoulders. Fine. I'll explain. He pulled out a chair and sat down. When we moved in, everything was supposed to be temporary. But then I lost my job. Mom looked surprised. You told me the company closed. Ryan lowered his eyes. It didn't. Nicole quietly added, he was let go. Ryan sighed. I didn't want anyone to know. I nodded for him to continue. The bills kept coming. Credit cards, car payments, medical costs for Jacob when he broke his arm. We fell behind. So you thought the house would solve everything, I said. He nodded. At first, I only wanted to borrow a little money. Mom looked confused. Why didn't you ask me? Ryan gave a sad smile. Because I knew you'd say no. She shook her head. No. I would have tried to help. That's exactly why I couldn't ask. Those words hung in the air. For the first time, I saw something I hadn't expected. Ryan wasn't only greedy. He had also been ashamed. But shame didn't excuse what he had done. It started with one meeting at the bank, Ryan admitted. They told me the house had enough value for a large loan. Nicole wiped a tear from her cheek. We thought we'd pay it back before anyone noticed. And when that didn't work? I asked. Ryan stared at the floor. We tried again. The county records showed several attempts, I said quietly. He nodded once. Every time we were denied, we hoped the next application would succeed. Mom slowly covered her mouth with one hand. You were trying to borrow against my home. Ryan looked at her. I told myself it was temporary. She whispered, you never even asked. I was afraid. The little sound in Mom's voice broke my heart more than anything else. I trusted you. Ryan closed his eyes. I know. Just then, the children came running into the kitchen. Grandma, little Emma called. Can we have cookies? The room instantly became quiet again. None of the children understood what had been happening. Mom smiled through her tears. Of course. She stood up automatically, ready to bake. I gently touched her arm. Sit. But the children. I'll make the cookies. The two kids smiled. Really? I grinned. Really? As I mixed the cookie dough, I listened to the quiet sounds behind me. Nobody argued anymore. Ryan sat with his head lowered. Nicole stared out the window. Mom gently held Emma on her lap. For the first time since I had come home, she wasn't serving everyone. She was simply being a grandmother. 20 minutes later, the smell of warm chocolate chip cookies filled the house. The children laughed as they ate. They had no idea the grown-ups were making decisions that would change all of their lives. When the kids went outside to play, I returned to the kitchen table. I slid the certified trust papers toward my mother. Mom, these belong to you. She looked at the documents without touching them. I don't understand legal papers. You don't have to. I pointed to one sentence. This house is yours for the rest of your life. She looked at me. No one can force you to leave. A tear rolled down her cheek. No one can sell it. Another tear followed. And no one can borrow money using this house. Ryan slowly looked up. So, it was impossible from the beginning. Yes. Nicole whispered, then every application was automatically blocked. Ryan leaned back in his chair. Months of worry seemed to leave his face all at once. He wasn't relieved because he had succeeded. He was relieved because the house had never actually been in danger. He quietly laughed once. I spent years chasing something I could never have. I nodded. Because I made one decision before leaving overseas. Mom looked at me with puzzled eyes. What decision? I smiled gently. I asked my lawyer to build a shield around this house. I reached into the folder one last time and removed the final page. There was one more reason every application failed. Ryan looked at the paper. His eyes grew wide. Nicole covered her mouth. Mom blinked in surprise. At the bottom of the page, beneath the trust agreement, was a single line that explained everything. Any change to the property required the written approval of the trust's legal protector. Ryan slowly raised his eyes to meet mine. His voice was barely a whisper. Ethan. I gave him a calm, steady look. I've been the legal protector since the day I bought this house. The truth was finally out. And for the first time in 6 long years, no one in that house could pretend they didn't know exactly where they stood. The words hung in the air. I've been the legal protector since the day I bought this house. No one spoke. Ryan looked down at the papers as if he hoped they might suddenly change. Nicole slowly sat back in her chair, her face pale. My mother stared at me with wide, watery eyes. You planned all of this? She asked softly. I shook my head. I planned to protect you. Years before leaving overseas, my lawyer had asked me one important question. What if someone pressures your mother into signing something she doesn't understand? At first, I laughed. No one in our family would ever do that. He smiled kindly. I hope you're right. But hope isn't a legal plan. So together, we created the trust. Not because I expected trouble. Because I wanted my mother to be safe no matter what happened. Ryan covered his face with both hands. I thought you didn't trust me. I looked at him quietly. It wasn't about trusting you. It was about protecting Mom. The room stayed silent. Finally, my mother spoke. Ryan, look at me. Slowly, he raised his head. She wasn't angry. She wasn't shouting. That somehow made the moment even harder. When your father died, she said gently, I promised myself that my boys would always have each other. Ryan's eyes filled with tears. I know. But somewhere along the way, you stopped seeing this as my home. He couldn't argue. Because she was right. You started making decisions for me instead of with me. Nicole quietly wiped away a tear. I'm sorry, Helen. Mom nodded. I believe you're sorry. Nicole looked surprised. But being sorry doesn't erase what happened. Ryan stood up. I'll pack our things. Mom looked at him. You don't have to leave today. He blinked. What? The children don't deserve to be frightened. She smiled sadly. They've done nothing wrong. That was my mother. Even after everything, she still thought about the grandchildren first. I walked over and gently placed my hand on Ryan's shoulder. I'll help you. He looked confused. You will? Yes. After everything? I nodded. You're still my brother. His eyes filled with tears again. I don't deserve that. Maybe not today. But you can choose to deserve it tomorrow. For the next 2 weeks, things changed. Ryan found a small rental house across town. It wasn't fancy. But it was enough for a fresh start. I helped him move every box. Neither of us talked much while we worked. Sometimes silence says more than words. Nicole found a part-time bookkeeping job at a local business. Ryan accepted work with a construction company. The first paychecks were small. But they were honest. One evening, while carrying the last box into the moving truck, Ryan stopped beside me. "I owe you something." "You don't owe me money." "I know." He looked toward Mom's house. "I owe you the truth." I waited. I kept telling myself I was borrowing the house. He swallowed hard. But little by little, I started believing it belonged to me. He shook his head. "I forgot whose sacrifice built it." I smiled sadly. "I'm glad you remember now." When the moving day ended, the children hugged Grandma tightly. "Can we still visit?" Emma asked. Mom smiled. "Every Saturday." The little girl clapped happily. "It'll be cookie day." Mom laughed. "It certainly will." As the truck drove away, the house became quiet. For the first time in years, it truly felt like my mother's home again. A week later, I surprised her once more. Workers arrived early that morning. They carried furniture inside. By sunset, the downstairs master bedroom looked exactly the way I had planned years before. Her grandmother's rocking chair had been found at a local charity shop. After a little searching and a lot of luck, I bought it back and had it carefully restored. When Mom saw it sitting beside the window, she covered her mouth. "You found it. It belongs here." She slowly sat down. The chair rocked gently back and forth. Just like it had when I was a little boy. She smiled through happy tears. "This finally feels like home." I looked out the window toward the garden. The flowers were blooming. The porch was peaceful. No one was giving orders. No one was treating her like a servant. She was simply living. Exactly as I had dreamed 6 years earlier. Sometimes people think revenge means shouting, fighting, or making someone suffer. I learned something different. Real justice doesn't always arrive with anger. Sometimes it arrives with patience. Sometimes it arrives inside a folder filled with careful paperwork. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't watching someone lose. It's watching the person you love finally live with the dignity they deserved all along. Every Saturday after that, the family gathered for cookies. Ryan and Nicole slowly rebuilt the trust they had broken, not with promises, but with honest choices. The children laughed in the backyard. My mother rested in her rocking chair whenever she pleased. And every time I saw her smiling on that front porch, I knew the greatest gift I had ever given her wasn't a $600,000 house. It was the peace of knowing that, at last, it was truly hers. Before you go, I want to ask you something. If you were in John's place, would you have forgiven your family after discovering the truth, or would you have walked away forever? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you would do. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more powerful family stories that remind us about love, sacrifice, and the choices we make. The end.